Hello, welcome to Brap Life. My name's Angel. Thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate the fact that you're listening. This week's episode is with my friend Todd. He's somebody that I met in Arizona when I first got there, this time around at least, and randomly met up with a stranger from the internet, and he just turned out to be this really cool dude who rocked up on a Kove, and it was a really interesting looking bike, and so it was cool. We got to the end of our single track and, our end, like where we wanted to stop. And then we sat and we talked, and I was like, dude, you've got to come on the podcast. Like, this is such a cool story. So I'm super excited for you guys to hear it. It's a little bit different. It's not the typical like hard enduro or hair scramble. We're talking a little bit more about rally racing, which is cool because I didn't really know anything about it. I knew Baja and Dakar existed, but I didn't really know anything about like the style of racing or anything like that. So it was cool to get a different perspective. It's really interesting to hear Todd's story, talking about coming from the Midwest to the Southwest and just his transition through life as he had dirt bikes be basically his therapy throughout his career, and then now into this portion of his life where he's got all kinds of other stuff going on. So it's really cool. I'm super excited for you guys to hear it. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next week.
So, first off, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. So, this is Brap Life. This is where we talk about the stories behind the writers. So,
How you
I
doing
really,
today?
I'm great. I'm great.
Yeah, I know
I
you're
really
great.
appreciate.
You had good news
Chopped
today.
it.
So.
Yeah. Um, but I do appreciate you taking time out of your day to come over and talk, and this is going to be really cool. So, I met Todd, what was it, like a month and a half ago already? It
Yeah,
feels like
yeah.
forever. Um, and he answered a Facebook thing where I was just like, anybody want to go riding? And I just met up with this random stranger from the internet and went riding, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So
Isn't that how it normally is, though?
I mean, usually I meet people in real life first. Like I meet people
Yeah,
at
yeah.
races and then like meet up with
Okay,
them after that. So
gotcha.
there's not a whole lot of like just randomly meet a stranger in the desert. So
Especially a guy, right? Like a
yeah.
random guy.
My
Yeah.
family was like, "You're meeting with who?" And I was like, "I don't know, some guy." And they're like, "Where?" And I was like, "I don't know, out by the mountains." And they're like, "Just one dude?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And
Yeah.
they're like, "Okay." I was like, "This is how it is. It's fine. It'll be okay.
Yeah. No,
I'll either
I
come
think
back or I won't."
that's a good thing about the Facebook groups. Is that
Mhm.
if I was some like wacko, hopefully everybody'd speak up and be like, "Don't go out there with that guy." Like I wouldn't say our like Facebook group is like vetted, but we're all active in there, and I
Mhm.
think even a lot of times people ask like, "Hey, is anybody gonna go riding?" And like the guys who run the group and stuff will like shout out different people like, "Hey, go ride with this guy or that guy," because they know the areas. So that's the cool thing about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So when you showed up that day, I was like totally thrown off because of your bike. And I was like, what are we going to be doing? And you're like, hey, let's do single track. And I was like, okay. And that was gnarly for me. Um, it was challenging for sure, but you rocked it on that bike. And that bike is huge.
It looks big, but it performs like a dirt bike. That's the awesome thing about it.
Yeah. It's gigantic. What
Yeah.
CCs is it and everything?
So it's a Kove 450. It's a rally
Okay.
bike. It basically has an enduro engine with big gas tanks on it. So same suspension, a little less ground clearance on it, um,
Mhm.
but it handles really well. So it's not in the weight realm of a adventure bike.
Mhm.
It's just under 400 pounds. So whereas like The KTM or whatever 450 would be just under 300 pounds. So it's about 100 pounds more, but it carries 8 gallons of fuel. So it's a big difference. And it has a full rally tower with all your navigation stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, that's really cool. Well, we'll get into why you have that bike here in a minute,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
let's rewind and let's talk about how did you get into riding in the first place?
Yeah. So, how do I summarize my life of riding? So I'm
Start at the
41.
beginning.
Yeah, I'm 41 years old, and
Mhm,
right now I live in Tucson. And I
mhm,
say I live in Tucson. I don't say I'm from Tucson because I've only been here 3 years, so
mhm.
I don't really feel that I can claim riding. I mean, claim Tucson. But I love living here for the riding. So
Yeah.
to back up, I'm from the Chicago area, and you think about like Chicago. Yeah, you're right. It's not a good place to grow up like riding dirt bikes.
Mhm,
Um, and so me growing up riding dirt bikes, um, I had always wanted my own dirt bike, and in about as fourth grade, I cut out a little picture of an XR80 and I put it up
mhm.
on my name tag at school on my desk. And every day I'd look at that thing and I was like, oh, I want that thing so bad. And we didn't have a lot of money, so it wasn't like my dad could just like get me dirt bikes whenever I'd want or anything like that. But um, fifth grade, my dad bought me my first dirt bike, XR80, and I was just in love, man. I rode that thing everywhere. But the kid down the street had a YZ80, and if you know the XR80 is like a trail bike, it's slow. And the kid down the street had the YZ80, the two-stroke. And
Mhm.
within a year, I was like, Dad, he's selling his bike. I want the YZ80. And we
Yeah.
sold the four-stroke, and he got me the little ripping YZ80, and it was to the races from there. I like absolutely fell in love with riding dirt bikes, and so riding wasn't like I went out to a motocross track. We didn't have any local tracks,
Mhm.
and my family dynamic, I didn't have the ability. My dad didn't take me to the track, so riding was riding out from my house, out into the cornfields, out into the forest, and just exploring. And so
Mhm.
I was known for that growing up. I'd ride my dirt bike everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
and so fast forward into like high school, I continued riding. In college, I worked at a motorcycle shop. And
Mhm,
so like all my life, I've always like been involved in motorcycles and dirt bikes. Um, and so college was more street bike oriented. The
mhm,
motorcycle shop was the owner was a drag racer, and so for a little while, I kind of got into drag racing, street bikes,
mhm,
and with the shop. So that was really fun. But I still always had a dirt bike. And then so after college, I started working. I started my career, and so there was a little like 5 year gap where I really wasn't riding much other than street
mhm,
bikes, and um, ended up getting married. And so between a career and being married, I was a police officer. It was
mhm,
my career, and so as being a police officer, I would always see fatal accidents out on the street on
mhm,
motorcycles. And working at a motorcycle shop, everybody who came through the door had a story about somebody who had been killed on a motorcycle. And so, that
mhm,
that affected me, once I got married and we wanted to have kids. And so I ended up like, I want to say about 2017, I sold my last street bike and I told my wife, I was like, okay, I'm done riding street bikes. I'll only ride dirt bikes from now on. But the kind of funny dynamic behind that is that I'm more of like a dual sport adventure, ride from my house to the trail. So I am out on the road some, but
mhm,
I try to remove that factor as much as possible from the already dangerous dynamic of riding motorcycles. So yeah,
Yeah.
so about 2017 or so, I think I like really focused on dirt bikes and
Mhm.
got a WR 450 and um, was a police officer at the time, and riding was my escape from a super stressful life. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, so and in about 2019, or no, sorry, 2017, when my son was born, I bought my first uh, new dirt bike, and that was a KTM 300 TPI. And
Mhm.
so that became my focus between taking care of an infant son,
Mhm.
and tinkering in the garage was like my life at that time. But you know, the fire of dirt bikes has just like always been in me, and yeah, and so in being a police officer, to go back to it a little bit, you know, that the toll that that takes on your brain and your personal life, um, it really affects you, you know. So
Mhm.
all my friends growing up, you know, as soon as I became a police officer, I became, you know, Officer Kincaid, and
Mhm.
you don't realize it. Everybody wants to like be like, oh, thank you so much for your service, but in your personal life, people you grew up with and stuff, they're like, you know, they kind of back off from you a little bit because now that you're like,
Mhm.
you know, like, yeah, you become a little bit of a stigma.
Mhm.
And so friends kind of go away from you. You have the increased stress of the job of being a police officer and all the stuff that you see out on the street. You're trying to raise a young family. It's a lot on your shoulders as a young person, you know, as a young
Mhm.
young man, as a young anybody. And yeah, so dirt bikes, I would say, saved my life because any free time I got, I was on my bike. So we worked
Mhm.
6 days on and had 3 days off. And like I told you, being in Illinois, we lived in like the absolute worst place in the world to be a dirt biker. And
Mhm.
I would have to travel like 3 to 4 hours. So my 3 days off, I would be working all week away from my family. And then I'd get
Mhm.
to my weekend and I would be like, see ya, hun. I'm gonna go camp for the weekend. And I'd take off for 3 days and go up to Michigan or go to Wisconsin or down to Kentucky or anywhere
Mhm.
I could to just like go be out in the wilderness and be riding my dirt bike. And so that was my escape. And
Mhm.
I had always, so being a cop, you're sitting in your patrol car a lot. And so you have a lot of free time and you don't realize it, but those cops out there, I mean, they're busy, but like there's a lot of downtime where there's not
Mhm.
shit popping off. And so um, you're sitting in your car and it's like, what are you going to do to fill your time? For
Mhm.
me, it was escaping into YouTube and into moto YouTubers, you know, into
Mhm.
um, Everride. I don't know if you've ever heard of Everride, but he is
Mhm.
one of the grandfathers of moto vlogs.
Mhm.
And I mean, his cinematography and the stories he would incorporate into the riding videos, and being in St. George, Utah, it's just absolutely epically beautiful. You know, I would escape my police car into his videos and just dream of going out west and just like escaping the Midwest and escaping my life of, you know, dealing with people's problems. I literally was like
Yeah.
a marriage counselor. Like people would fight and call the police, and I'd show up and be like, "How can
Mhm.
I fix your marriage in the next 15 minutes?" Um, yeah, so other people like, you know, Itchy Boots. I started watching Itchy Boots at that time. I don't know if you know who she is
Mhm.
either, but
Mhm.
I mean, just the way that they could tell a story and travel. I think you relate to that too. Being able to
Yeah.
travel, on a motorcycle and incorporating the motorcycle into it. It's like the best of both worlds. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd always dreamt of somehow, some way, incorporating motorcycles into making money. So, yeah. I know I'm rambling on here, but
No, you're
my life,
fine. You're fine.
my life story goes on.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I was a cop for like 7 years,
Mhm.
and I was like really getting burnt out. This was, through COVID. Um,
Mhm.
the year of COVID and being a cop was probably the best year ever because nobody left their house, nobody called the police. So again, it was like it like fed into the whole, you talk about like everything happening for a reason and stuff. Like,
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
I had nothing to do for that year. So like,
Yeah.
watching all this content and trying to scheme a way to get myself into a different place. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I took a trip out and multiple times out to Tyler's rallies, and started meeting people. Tyler became a really good friend of mine, and
Mhm.
so I started just like putting myself out there to different content creators. And what's funny is you just realize is that they're just people like you are. And like,
Mhm.
on YouTube, they'll end up having like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and like, people will almost like, they're like become little celebrities in their own little niche
Yeah.
sport or whatever, or niche topic.
Mhm.
And but what you if you just like reach out to these people, most of the time you'll realize that they're down to earth and they'll take the time to respond. And so yeah, so I started reaching out to different people and went out and rode with Tyler. And so COVID was going on. I was getting tired of being a cop. It was affecting, my home life.
Mhm.
And my in-laws were going to be moving out to Tucson, and I have two little boys, which are the light of my light of my life.
Mhm.
What I'm most proud of above all else are my two little boys. And um, so keeping them near their grandparents. I mean, normally like grandparents are supposed to follow the grandchildren, but
The
like we did the
grandkids, yeah.
opposite because they were going somewhere cooler than we were, and we're like, well, crap, let's go. So they were
Oh,
retiring to
darn.
Tucson. Yeah, they were retiring to Tucson, and the housing market was way up, and so you know
Mhm.
we don't have a lot of money, but we were financially set, because
Mhm.
police officers in Chicago make good money. And um yeah, so it was a hard decision, but at the same time, it was kind of like a roll the dice, and we're still
Yep.
living in that aftermath. But at the time, we did make the decision that, let's sell the house, we'll have a little bit of a
Mhm.
cushion, let's move out to Arizona. My wife, thank God, she found a job right away. But what I did was, and again, thank God for my wife because she was so supportive of me. But I took the first year moving to Arizona as like a
Mhm.
decompression year, like
Yeah.
a, a where all I did was go ride my dirt bike, and 4 to 5 days a week, I was out. I would leave in the morning and go out hundreds of miles, and because here in Arizona, we can plate pretty much everything. And it doesn't matter if
Mhm.
you're on a two-stroke or you're on a 450 motocross bike or whatever, a four-wheeler.
Mhm.
If you got a plate on it, pretty much the cops are going to leave you alone. So
Yeah.
that was brand new to me coming from Illinois, where you can't plate anything dirt bike wise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, for a year, I just decompressed riding dirt bikes, traveling around Arizona, um, going up to Pahrump, Nevada, going to Jimmy Lewis's riding school, going back to See Ever Ride just to go ride in Utah. Um, and and so yeah, that was the first year of being here in Arizona, and I came with I came with like a fleet of bikes. I had this dream that I would come out here to Arizona and start some kind of tour company, like where I
Yeah.
could do fly and ride vacations for people.
Yeah.
And so that was my idea. But when I first got here, I wasn't really super motivated to do it. I was a little in my own world of like riding. I want to ride. Like I don't have any responsibilities. I for the last 7 years of my life, I've missed every holiday, every birthday,
Mhm.
every anniversary. And
You
now I
had to
get to,
catch up on life. Yeah.
yeah, I got to be there for my boys. I got to pick them up from school and take them to school. And, I got to do all these things that I had never done. And so it was amazing,
Mhm.
but then, life sets in and the cushion starts to dry up and, you got to get a job. And so then I ended up having to get a job.
Mhm.
And so I started the tour company, um, you know, and started this website, and would get people in every couple weeks, just random guys that would be out here on vacation, and
Mhm.
their families, would be sitting by the pool or going shopping, and he would want something to do for the day. So I would like arrange, a whole thing where they would come in with nothing, and I'd like dress them from head to toe, like, oh no, no, you want to put the boots on the inside of the pants. That I would have to explain like the whole
Yeah.
situation to them, and I take these guys out, and yeah, so it's not easy to meet people's expectations on those types of fly and ride types of things, because people
Mhm.
don't realize how gnarly Arizona is, and some people are just looking for scenic, sit on the seat, look around, and
Yeah.
so it's not super easy. So it wasn't super lucrative. So I got the job, and yeah, so uh, yeah, that's kind of like the history of me and dirt bikes and how I ended up out here in Arizona. And so here we are,
Mhm.
about 3 years, fast forwarded, of being in Arizona. And I mean, it ain't all rainbows and butterflies. Yeah, it's sunshine every day, but life is hard. And um, you know, yeah, I get to ride out from my garage every day, but the economy out here in Arizona isn't as good as the Chicagoland area. Jobs don't pay
Mhm.
as much. People would always say, "Oh, cost of living is going to be a lot less moving out west." And I'm like, "You get out here," and I'm like, "I don't." Gallon of gas is the same, milk's the same, my utilities are the same. Yeah, property taxes are less, but you get a lot less out here in Arizona than you would back in the Midwest. And so yeah,
Mhm.
um, out here and just trying to make it work, just trying to make it work. And um, yeah, so if so my writing, we go back to like talking about like dirt bike, like
Yeah.
what kind of writing or how did you get into the writing and stuff. And I explained like I was like more like the explorer, not necessarily going to the motocross track or
Yeah.
racing or anything like that. Like for me, riding's like an escape. And
Mhm.
um, you're in your head, and all that matters is like not eating shit. Like like,
Yes, exactly.
and although you're exercising and you're out of breath and like you're trying not to eat crap, it's crazy because at the same time you're in like this zen moment where you're having
Mhm.
like the best thoughts, the clearest thoughts that you've ever had, and you're able to like work out all those demons in your head, and you're exercising, so
Mhm.
you're getting like that physical activity.
Yep.
So yeah, like just like everything about dirt bikes, it's like once it gets in your blood, it's it's there for good. And I
Yeah.
know my boys, I know my boys are going to be the same way, because yeah, they ride dirt bikes, but right now the focus is BMX and that
Mhm.
foundation of riding BMX bikes. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I know they're going to be the
We
next
just
generation of dirt bikers.
Yeah, we just had a couple episodes ago a guy who did BMX. Like he did dirt biking when he was younger, but he did BMX like pretty hardcore. And
Yeah.
then he went back to dirt biking and now he does like hard enduro. Um, but it was really cool when he was talking about it. BMX is something I always wanted to do. I never
Mhm.
got into that sort of thing. I didn't do sports or anything like that growing up. Um, but it was really cool to hear him talk about it and talk like the translation of skills. So that's really cool that you just said that. It just reminded me of him. So
Yeah. And I'm just going because that's like the formula that's worked for other really
yeah.
good riders. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Chase Sexton is one that came from BMX. Cole Seeley was a BMXer. Yeah, a lot of them just and you can. They always talk about it, the announcers and people, the media guys will always talk about the just the how fluid and smooth guys are who come from that BMX background. So and
Yeah.
even I'll even shout out to my boy Mason Klein, is right now. Dakar started 2025. Dakar
Mm-hmm.
started yesterday. They should be doing the first leg of the race today. And
Mm-hmm.
Mason Klein is out there on a Kove for the factory Kove team. So yeah, I just want to give a shout out. I'm super stoked. If you know anything about the rally world, Dakar is the race that everybody lives for the year or works towards for the year. And so yeah, it's a big deal. And so yeah, that's kind of where the Kove comes into play here.
Mm-hmm.
Is the whole riding, the riding style and what you know I've always tried to accomplish on a bike and how it's like meshed with this like racing community and like started this
Mm-hmm.
whole new world of like riding in my life. And
Yeah.
again, I think the theme of our discussion has kind of been everything happening for a reason, you know
Yep.
and there's
Yep.
so many like things that had to fall in place to get the Kove here to the United States and for it to
Mm-hmm.
actually come to the market. It's what people like me have been asking for decades, and that
Yeah.
is a mass-produced, affordable rally bike that could be street legal. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at like a KTM for that, for a rally bike, I mean, you're talking if you can actually get one because you have to get on a waiting list and they only have like 100 that come to the States or something like that. I mean, you're talking
Mm-hmm.
in excess of 25 to 30 to 40 grand for the bike. Whereas a Kove, about 8,500 to like 10 grand, I think is what they are. And they'll ship them to your door. Um, and so
Wow.
there's this whole stigma behind Chinese bikes,
Yeah.
or just Chinese products in general. Anytime
Mm-hmm.
that comes up, there's that stigma. And so, and like KTM riders, I mean, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not riding a KTM, if you're not rocking orange, wearing Climb, like if you don't have the matching kit, the coolest thing, like the dirt bike community is like the quickest to be like, look at this squid, and I hate that. I hate that about the whole community, um, the whole like image part of it. If you're not driving a big pickup, riding the KTM, you're just like you're like a wannabe or whatever. But
I
anyways,
think that's a little bit different in the world that you're in than the world that I'm in because I've never experienced anything like that
really,
in like the hard enduro side and like the
uh,
hair scrambles that I've been to and stuff.
sure,
Like I mean I've been to like a lot of like motocross, supercross stuff. That's kind of where I started in this world before I started riding. I was around that stuff. So I kind of saw some of that more like I guess for lack of a better term, like elitist thought in that
yeah,
kind of realm.
for sure,
Um, but doing more of the off-road stuff, like the hard enduro community is not like that at all.
okay, okay,
And like all of the like I said, the off-road stuff that I've been to, the races, it's not rally races, so it's probably a little bit different, but it's just so welcoming no matter what. Like, I camp
Yeah.
in my car, nobody cares that I show up in my car, like, with my bike on the back. Like, they actually think it's really cool because a lot of people have never seen it. And,
Mhm.
like, everybody's just super welcoming. Nobody cares what you're wearing. Nobody cares what you're riding. They might rag on you a little bit because, like, before the whole Cody Webb thing, if you had a Yamaha and you're trying to do hard enduro, people are like, "What are you doing?" Um, but yeah, I've actually never experienced that. So that's
Yeah.
kind of crazy that you said that.
Yeah, and I guess my perspective is looking at the motocross, the Southern California
Mm,
community of motocross and supercross.
yeah.
I
Mm, like I
although
said,
I
that
did,
world is kind of different.
yeah, for sure. And although I didn't race motocross, like that was like I loved it. I watched it, like hardcore.
You're around it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
went to the race every time I could, anywhere it came around. And so I guess that's more where like the mismatched gear and like
Yeah.
not riding the newest, greatest, and I think that again, I don't want to. I'm gonna bite my tongue here. Never mind.
You're
I don't want to
fine.
generalize people, but like people from California are just very judgmental, I guess. So, but
Certain
anyway,
parts of
yeah,
California, yes.
certain parts. And hey, I'm from California. My family's from California, so I can talk crap about California. Yeah. So I had always tinkered on bikes, like not only
Yeah.
road bikes, but I also like built bikes. I'm very
Yeah.
mechanically inclined. You know, I was a pilot at one point. I'm not currently active as a pilot, but so uh, even as a little boy, I started working on stuff and grew up and so I had always tried to make my bikes basically into the Kove. I would put larger fuel
Mhm.
tanks on them. I would take like motocross bikes, put big fuel tanks on them, gear them down so that they could go a little faster. And as it progressed, I would actually I made like a little homemade towers with like my navigation screens on it and stuff because there was never any like rally bike or adventure bike that I liked. I like dirt bikes, and I liked
Yeah.
taking little dirt bikes on big adventures is like was my motto. And so
Okay.
I would load a dirt bike up with like saddlebags and my camping gear. And
Yeah.
I would have like really good lighting on the front, and I would just go and park my bike on one side of Michigan and ride all the way to the other side of Michigan, like camping out along the way.
Oh. Yeah.
And so that was always my type of riding. And about 5 years ago, Kove, or actually at the time it was GPX. And if you know
Mhm.
GPX, like Megs Brap rides for GPX, and
Mhm.
they are a Chinese brand bike. Um, and they are brought to the US by a distributor out of Utah called USA Motor Toys. And the owner of the
Mhm.
company's name is Gary Goodwin. And so Gary Goodwin went through the whole process of finding a quality Chinese made dirt bike and bringing it over here to the US to try to compete with KTM and like get his foot in the door. And he's done a fantastic
Mhm.
job of doing that and really
Mhm.
changing the stigma behind Chinese dirt bikes. And
Yeah.
I'm, and for Meg's Brap to like go out and like allow herself to be sponsored by GPX and ride those bikes, that was huge for them because it was like somebody with some
Yeah.
credibility who's going to beat the crap out of this thing to prove that it's quality. And so
Mhm.
about 5 years ago, GPX started touting that they were going to release a FSE 450 rally bike that was going to be
Mhm.
around $9,000.
Mhm.
And so I started following along and I was like, wow, that'd be awesome. And there were some other bikes out there a little bit. There's a bike called an AJP PR7
Mhm.
that is also a rally type bike that takes an old, I think it's a old gas motor that they put into like a lot of different bikes, but AJP bought the rights to it and put it into a bike. And so I was looking at that one and really didn't know what I wanted. But
Mhm.
then a couple years went by and they weren't really talking about it anymore. So I thought it kind of fell off. And so I moved out to Arizona and I'm watching and they start coming out that now US Motor Toys is advertising this or marketing this bike as a Kove for
Mhm.
50 and that they were going to start taking deposits within a year. And it really sparked my interest. And so as soon as they we're going to take deposits for the bike, and it was like, hey, these bikes are in production. They started like teasing us with photos from the factory, like, hey, these bikes are coming. I threw
Yeah.
down my deposit, and right as I threw down my deposit, within a couple of weeks, Gary is talking to Everride and is tapping
Mhm.
into Everride to create some content for the Kove. And so Gary
Yeah.
gives Tyler, Everride's name is his name's Tyler, gave Tyler a one of the pre-production models of the Kove. And so Tyler made a lot of content about the Kove and how if anybody, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there in the moto community that know about Tyler, and he doesn't buy. Nobody can buy his opinion, and he'll tell it like it
Yeah.
is. And so when he got the
Yeah.
pre-production bike and took it out there and had nothing but rave reviews about it, I felt good about the deposit that I had put down. Um, and so yeah, it was, I don't even remember. I think it was about 6 months before the bike finally came, but it was just over a year ago now that the Kove's first came over here, and I had one of the first bikes in the first batch. And yeah, it was such an exciting day to have the Kove come to my house in the truck, and it come down off the back of the truck. And yeah, it was like a kid on Christmas that day. And yeah, so far the Kove has lived up to all my expectations. It is an amazing bike. Um, for a company like Kove, anytime I've had anything with the bike, I can call Gary on the phone and be like, "Hey Gary,
Mhm.
this is what's going on," and he will like ship the product out, like the replacement or like whatever issue I'm having. He'll no cost whatsoever, and it's like, what kind of like major manufacturer could you get on the phone with the owner and like tell him what you're facing, and him just be like, all right, yeah, my guys are on it, they're gonna ship you out the part. So yeah, I mean, I give a lot of
Yeah.
props to Gary and his
And
guys.
that's yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you can't with especially with somebody like KTM. I had a friend who had all of these issues with his brand new KTM, and like he just kept having issue after issue after issue. And he was trying to like figure out what was going on with it. He just kept fouling plugs. Like this dude knows bikes. Like he's like, I don't know what the heck is going on. I think he went through like 17 plugs, and I had only known him for like 3 months at that point. So I was like, dude, that is so much.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get a hold of anybody. KTM didn't want to do anything. He talked to the USA side. He talked to like as high up as he could go, and nobody was doing anything. And it's a common issue, I guess, that like some of the newer KTMs had like really bad issues with fouling plugs. And I
Yeah.
don't remember what he did to it. Something with the ECU, he changed out, and then he sold the bike, and the new dude hasn't had any issues with it. But like he was just like, I'm done. He went to beta because
Yeah.
like, why are you gonna stick with somebody if they wouldn't even help you? You know, it was a new
Yeah.
bike.
Yeah.
So
And companies kind of grow so large, and I think that they forget about the little guy.
mhm,
But Kove is really trying to make a name for themselves, and
mhm,
they raced in the 2023 Dakar. They put 3 bikes in, and all 3 bikes
mhm,
finished, which was a huge testament to the bike.
Mhm.
um, there are any manufacturer that goes into the car has problems, and a lot of them don't finish. So for three bikes to enter and three bikes to finish,
It's a big
last
deal.
year last year was they sent a new 450EX. It's essentially the Gen 2 of my
Mhm.
bike. And in the Gen 2, they have gone completely in-house with the motor. It's all completely like race spec. Where as mine, they marketed it and they produced it so that it could be street legal as well. So
Mhm.
and there's guys still racing the Gen 1 in Dakar. Um, yeah, so to talk about where the Kove's taken me over the last
Mhm.
year, because we've
Yeah.
kind of talked a lot about my history, and here I am talking about myself, and I don't I
That's
don't
the whole
know.
point of
I
this. The whole point is so people can get to know you and your
Yeah,
story. So the whole
yeah.
idea behind all of this is to just talk dirt bikes and to hopefully inspire somebody. Somebody out there is going to hear your story and they're
Mhm.
going to find something that they resonate with. That happens in every single episode. I have had trail riders who don't race. I have had people who go out once a month if they're lucky to ride, and they have just as many people messaging me about how inspiring they are as the pros that I've had on here. Everybody has a story and everybody's story matters. So that's
Yeah.
the whole thing, is just showing the diversity. Everybody comes from such a different background, and for you, being a police officer is something that's very different. We haven't had that on here. We've had military before, and but we've never had first responders before, and so that's something that more people can hopefully relate to. And that whole struggle, you were talking about taking that time to decompress. That's huge. That's part of that whole mindset. Like, we talk about mindset a lot, and how you have to have a lot of resilience, and you have to be a little bit crazy to be on dirt bikes, because like you have to like falling, because we all fall in the beginning. Um, but it hardens your mindset. And that's something that you really had to kind of redo when you got out of, that occupation. You had to really kind of figure it all out again, because I mean, I haven't done it, but I have a few friends who have, and there's some things that happen, when you're on the
Mhm.
job. You never talk about it, but
Mhm.
it can be really, really difficult to deal with in a lot of different ways. So I think that speaks a lot to, what you've been through, and how dirt bikes really have brought you kind of not really full circle, but, to a completely different place. And I think it's great. You seem like a very happy person.
Well, thank you, thank you. Yeah, and
So let's talk
so
about this last year with the Kove.
yeah, yeah. So the Cove, I've said it a bunch, but the Cove really, not that the fire ever died, but like it just really reinvigorated the fire in me to do something with dirt biking. And I didn't
Mhm.
know what that was. Like, I honestly had no idea, because as I started to work and having to work full time out here and just trying to make it work, not making as much money, having to do extra stuff on the side just to make ends meet,
Mhm.
and dirt biking still being my release, still being my my escape. And
Mhm.
I'm in Arizona, and life starts to get hard. My father, who was in Illinois still at the time after we moved here, he fell ill, and he moved here so that we could take care of him. And so for the last year of his life, he was here in Arizona with us. And so we escaped Illinois to try to have this like amazing life. I talked about the rainbows and butterflies, thinking that just the desert, it was going to be like the fix to life. But no,
Yeah.
the hard times found us in Arizona as well. And so
Mhm.
I had my father with me, and unfortunately, about a year after he had to come here for us to take care of him, he passed away. And so that was super difficult for me to lose my dad. I absolutely loved him, and he was like, he's the one that gave me the first bike. He's the one that, although he didn't take me to the motocross track, or like he did take me out riding, but he provided me that first bike and gave me the space and freedom to just go ride from my house. And so like just after he passed away, literally the weekend after he passed away, it was the week before Dakar. So I mean, we're about a year and a month out from when that happened. Um, I had started talking to Mason Klein, and because he was going to go race a Kove in Dakar, and Everride is making content on Kove's for his channel and for Gary with Kove USA. And so, I thought, you know what? I'm going to take these two and I'm going to bring two worlds together. And so I kind of talked about this earlier, but people are people. And I just reached out to both of them and I said, hey guys, I got this great idea. Why don't we like take Everride's cinematography and video making content skills and Mason Klein's writing and Kove and going to Dakar and bring them together, and this could be amazing content, like, what do you guys think? And they were both on board. I was like, I told my wife, like, hey honey, I'm going out to California next weekend. And she's like, what? And so literally my dad had just passed away, and the next weekend it was like I had this opportunity to go experience something. And it was like, what was I bringing to the table? I really didn't. I was just the Yahoo who was like, hey, I got this idea, but like they let me come along for the ride, and so I went out to California and went and stayed at Mason's house with Tyler and got to go ride with Mason Klein. And so you talk about Mason Klein in Dakar, and he's pretty cool. But the younger brother, no, he's a freaking stud. The younger brother's name is Carter Klein, and Carter Klein is a 20-year-old just absolute beast of a dirt bike rider. And he was on the Baja 1000 team that won 2 years ago, and he was the youngest member of a Baja 1000 team to win. He went over to Arturo Salas's team this last year in Baja for the Score International Series, and he was riding with Arturo on the 11X bike, and they ended up winning the championship, and now they have the 1X for 2025. So anyways, I was like, again, like I was supposed to be like in mourning in this moment, and I was out there riding my dirt bike, a Kove, with like some of the coolest people in my like little world of dirt bikes I could ever. I was like grinning ear to ear, and like my face has only hurt that once before from smiling so hard, and that was when I got engaged. And so yeah, I was literally, and I was like making content the whole time, so I had my my camera on and whatnot. And like I go back to that video and I listen to it, and I literally just sound like a little kid. I'm literally giggling in my helmet, like giggling, like I can't believe how that, like, and and I mean, so it was so cool. It was just such a cool experience. And so Everride interviewed him and did drone footage of him ripping his Kove through the mountains right outside, like right where he lives there. And it was awesome. It was a great experience. And so, I walked away from that just like, man, like dirt bikes are awesome. Like what else can we do? And so so the year went on, and I'm like, okay, I want to get some rides together. I want to like try to bring
Mhm.
rally and make it relevant here in Arizona because we have the best area to ride, like such huge wide open spaces. And
Yeah.
rally racing is reading a road book. So you have a roll chart, either a digital or an actual roll chart, where you have your
Mhm.
directions and you have a switch on your handlebar that rolls it. And so it's either digitally just swiping through the pages, or it's an actual piece of paper
Mhm.
that's going from roll to roll, and it's leading you. And then you have a compass heading, and you have a couple of odometers, and so you're
Mhm.
reading directions that say like go on this cap heading, this direction for this specific amount of time. And then once that time expires, there's going to be another direction and you need to be able to go this way. So that's what rally racing is that like it
Okay.
slows down the racing a little bit. It's supposed to
Yeah.
like make it a little safer. Whereas like Baja racing, you're blind.
Yeah.
Although you do pre-run, the course can
Mhm.
change all the time, and you don't have any of those warnings about that. You're just like blitzing through, just like blind. Whereas rally racing, you have notes and they warn you about like different dangers and places you need to be aware of where you're going to be turning. And so it slows down the racing and it makes you have to think more while you're racing.
Mhm.
So I wanted to like bring, I wanted to do some like waypoint type riding, not just like group riding. I didn't want to like,
Mhm.
oh, have a big group come out and let's just go hit the trail. Like, I've done that for years, that's what I always do.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be able to be like, okay, here, let's build a track. Give me your email before you come, and I'll send you the track. We all show up at the same place, and we'll have like one meeting like halfway through, and then there's a destination at the end, a restaurant or whatever in another town 100 miles away, and find your way there, and we'll see you when you get there. It just makes it a little more fun and changes it up a little bit. So like I put out,
It's an adventure.
yeah, exactly. So I had like put out some feelers like, hey, let's do some kind of event. And
Yeah.
so it's hard to like get people to come out.
Mhm.
I think a lot of times people are intimidated more than anything, and really they shouldn't be, because I'm not like amazing rider. Yeah, I can ride, but I'm not like top tier rider at all. And so it's hard to get people to come out because they're like, oh, are these guys gonna be racing around? Yeah, we're gonna be racing around, but like
Mhm.
it doesn't matter, like you go at your own speed. The whole idea is it's your
Yeah.
own ride it your own way. Just get to the
Yeah.
end and we'll have all the respect for you in the world, you know. But don't come out and say you're
Yeah.
amazing and then suck ass. um, but anyway, so I got like a handful of guys to come out,
Mhm.
and um, you know, we and I had no idea who these guys were. I thought they were a bunch of random guys, and I brought one of my
Mhm.
buddies with me from down here in Tucson, and we went up to the Florence area, and I had this cool ride from Florence up to Superior through like I had done this big loop by myself. It was like 120 miles and some gnarly stuff, and I was like, okay, let's do this ride. And so these guys came out, and we did the first half of the day up to Superior, and we get to lunch and stuff. And there's this guy, and he's like, hey, what do you think about racing in Baja? And I'm like, racing in Baja? Like, yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. And he's like, oh, and
Yeah.
then he goes on to explain how, he's raced down in Baja for like 17 years. And, he's got this team where he's racing the Kove down there and they need another rider. So this was post San Felipe 250. So they had already done the San
Mhm.
Felipe 250, and they were riding the ready to ride rentals. That is such a mouthful. Ready to ride rentals 805X
Mhm.
Kove.
Mhm.
And in the 250, they had an issue with the bike. And that's why my bike's down right now, for that exact issue that they had in the San Felipe 250. And unfortunately, in the first batch of the Koves, they sent them out,
Mhm.
and there's a starter clutch bearing. And
Mhm.
after the bike's been started like thousands of times, that starter clutch bearing, I guess, just isn't the springs in it aren't strong enough, and it fails. And so
Yeah.
Kove knows about this. And when it happened to my bike, they sent me out the parts like that. And so again, goes back to the the customer service and standing behind their product. But anyway, so in
Yeah.
the San Felipe 250, they had that issue, so they had a DNF in that race,
Mhm.
and it was like, and so they were down a rider. And they knew I had a Kove, so I would have a backup bike slash pre-runner, and they had seen me ride that day. So come to find out, it was actually more of a tryout. Like they were
Yeah.
actually they were seeing if I was going to be up to the task. And
Yeah.
so they asked me to race, and I told them in my head I'm thinking like, well, what about A, B, and C factor? And I'm like,
Yeah.
don't even question it. Just yeah,
Just do it.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah. I didn't. So naturally, I would have been like, well, who's racing and when do I have to be there and all these other things. And it was like, I don't want to put all that like on him. So I was just like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And he kind of sold me on it. He's like, oh, I got a house in San Felipe, and I'm thinking, oh, we're all riding down there together. Like my first question to him should have been, what is my financial contribution going to need to be to this?
Yeah.
Because racing in Baja was expensive. So,
Mhm.
um, so yeah, I said yeah, but I always say this too, and I always bring this up because my wife's gonna watch this. My next thing was like I had to go ask the wife.
Yeah.
I had to go get permission from her.
Yeah.
But you know, but what was really cool, and again, I tell this story all the time, is like I went to told my wife this whole thing. I was like, guess what, honey? Went ride with these guys today, and this guy, he runs this team, and he wants me to come ride for him, and what do you think? And
Mhm.
she was like, yeah. She was like, I would never. What do you think? Yeah, I would never prevent you from going to do that. I know that that is like your dream.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when she says that that's your dream, it's like a boy coming from the Midwest who grew up riding dirt bikes. I have always watched all the documentaries. I've always watched the From Dust to Glory, on Any Given Sunday. And then more recently, they've made even more. There's this guy named oh gosh, drawing a blank right now. But yeah, he does these series. He's
That
like
one guy.
millionaire that does these Baja series where he races down here. And so those were another one of the videos.
Mhm.
They're called Into the Dust.
Yeah.
And he does a great job at detailing racing in Baja on a dirt bike as
Yeah.
somebody who's not really a lifetime racer. It's like any guy man's or any how do you say that? Any like a regular person that could just go down to Baja, not just like a hardcore racer. And
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I had all these things in my head of Baja, and it was always on my bucket list of going down there eventually and just riding myself and moto camping and that sort of thing. I had always thought, yeah, Baja 1000 would be awesome, but and I'm not really in that realm, so I would never be able to do it. So when these guys asked me, it was like my eyes and my ears perked up, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Naive me, like I have no idea what I'm getting myself in for, and and that's the truth. So yeah, so that's what the last year has been, was um, suddenly getting this opportunity to go down to Baja and race with these guys. And the guy who runs the 805X team, uh, Dustin is his name. Dustin Davis. He's an
Mhm.
awesome guy. He's fantastic. I call him the captain because this guy is like, I mean, he's got a plan for like every situation, and like he doesn't deviate from it. Like there's no emotion in it. It's just like business for him. And so that
Yeah.
was like really reassuring for me, you know, to go down there with somebody who had experience and you know could tell me all the different steps and nuances to it. And now I feel
Mhm.
like I'm comfortable that like I could go down there by myself, you know. But yeah, to have somebody like that with that experience to like offer to join their team, and it was such a huge honor. And you know, I just in a lot of that like imposter syndrome of being like, I'm not good enough to do it. Like what, you know, my wife would even speak, you know, motivation into me, and you know, like, hey, there's a reason why they asked you to ride down there. Like they rode
Yep.
with you, they would not chance. And what Dustin said in the beginning was, to race in Baja, you have to be willing to take 20 grand and put it in a barrel in front of you and just light it up, because you put all that money and investment into it, and you go down there and you have
Mhm.
a bike failure in the first like 100 miles of a 1,000-mile race. There's nothing you can do. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if we
That's
have
a
time to
totally
go in.
different
I
Yeah,
don't know
that's
if
a
we have time to
totally
go
different
into the.
mindset than, like, a lot of other races. Like, a lot of them, it's like a couple $100 and, like, oh, something happens, your bike's out, and, like, that sucks. Like, but I mean, even, like, in something like Romaniacs is, like, I think it's, like, 2,500 or something like that to enter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. If when you do stuff
Yeah.
like that and you have a bike failure or you get injured or something like that, I mean, you're giving up a heck of a lot for it, and that
Yeah.
sucks, but yeah, no, go ahead and continue.
Yeah. So yeah, they invited me to come down and race, and so I had about, I want to say I had like 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks from the time they asked me until the race, and I had been
Yeah,
riding but not consistently. And so, and this was midsummer, you know, like the heat of the summer. So I made it a point that like, okay, now it's training time. You know, I got 3 weeks to
yeah,
ride at least 3 to 4 days a week. And I even was like riding to my work, which is
yeah.
like 50 minutes north of us, and I would ride through the desert all the way up to my work, and I would show up just drenched in all my gear, and all my
Oh my
coworkers were like,
gosh.
wow, you're pretty hardcore, huh? And I'm like, I'm training. And it was cool because they all gave me respect for it. They're all like, wow, that's pretty hardcore. You're riding in the desert all the way up here. I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
lot.
yeah. So I mean, I had to, you know, if I was going to be working
Yeah,
full time, like I had to fit in long rides, because that's what
yeah,
racing down in Baja is all about. So I get my bike, I get it all prepped up, and I'm like, that's my realm, you know, working on the bikes, getting it like perfectly prepped, and
yeah,
you know, that's kind of like what I pride myself on. And I've bought and sold dozens of bikes. I've built up bikes and just invested like literally thousands and thousands into them. And people will come
yeah.
along and buy them from me, and I always would make money off them. But people will come along and be like, wow, like this is a nice bike here. And like I'll have people like to this day, like 10 years after I sold them a bike, still contacting me, be like, this is my pride and joy, sending me pictures of it and stuff. So like, yeah, so I love building up really cool stuff. So I like, you know, I'm like, oh, prep my bike, go down to Baja. So I prep it all up. I find a buddy who's willing to go down with me, because coming to find out that, you know, oh yeah, well, there's a house, you have a house in San Felipe, but if we're going to be pre-running and everything, we got to be in Ensenada. So you need to get a place in Ensenada. And
Mhm.
so, but then once you're in Ensenada, you have to drive 4 hours one way, like literally. So we're like 8 hours from like Tucson down to Ensenada. But I
Yeah.
kid you not, we would drive like 4 hours back the other way into the middle of the peninsula to the desert just to start pre-running. And it's like, so the amount of
Oh
like
my god.
involvement in
Yeah.
racing down there is just insane. The days are like really, really long. It's hot as could be. I'm allergic to bees. I'll tell you this whole thing. I'm allergic to bees. And I get down to
Mhm.
Baja and they're like, "Oh, you're allergic to bees? You can't race in Baja if you're allergic to bees." Like they're just saying like not
There's
like you
so
can't, like
many
it's against the
bees down
rules.
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it ends up where I'm handing off the bike in the Baja 500 is like
Uh-huh.
bee haven.
Of course.
We show up down there to stage there one day, and we
Mhm.
pull in, and there's just swarms of bees all around the car. Just zzz. I'm like, I can't even get out here. I look over, there's like 3 people in this middle of this nowhere parking lot in the middle of the Baja Peninsula, and there's like one car over there, and I see this guy, and he's got like basically like almost like a bee's hat on, and he's going like this, and I'm like, yeah, there's lots of bees, and I'm like, wait a second, that's Mason. So out in the middle of nowhere in Baja, I go over to Mason. I'm like, what up, man? And we start shooting the shit. And he's like, yeah, my dad just got stung right now. We were just talking about how you can't be allergic to bees racing down here. And I'm like, well, I am. And so I ended up
That's
just driving
crazy.
further down into a different area to start prepping. And then,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of jumping forward here, and I'll go back. But like when I had to hand the bike over, I had
Mhm.
there were so many bees around me, and I was so toast. I was sitting there, and like literally they were just like swatting bees off my back as I'm like heaving. It was a nightmare.
Oh my
But
god.
anyway, so to go back to prepping the bike. So I prep my bike,
Yeah.
and I get down to Baja, and we drive hours out into the spot where Dustin is going to hand the bike off to me.
Mhm.
And we're basically doing like a little mock handover. Like we put a ribbon on a tree, we put the GPS track, coordinates in the GPS, like this is where you need to be on race morning, by
Yeah.
6 a.m., and I should be there anytime between like 7 and 10 a.m. Okay, so make sure you're here.
Mhm.
And we're like, all right, cool. So let's do a little mock handover. We do that. He comes riding up with my bike. We do a little handover thing. And he's like, all right. So then he's giving us a little like this is what it's going to be like in Baja. Okay. Here's the track. You can't come backwards on it. So I had a buddy with me who was going to ride with me. And
Mhm.
um, so we were like, we're listening to all his instructions, and it's like, hey, if we start going, you can't come back on it. We're in the section that I was set to run is called
Mhm.
the Summit, and it's up over a mountain pass. And so he has
Mhm.
me riding the Summit on a Kove, on an adventure bike. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's give it a go. And so, we're out here and we take off. And this is full on pre running Baja 500. So there's trophy trucks. And you're just like, and trophy trucks, I mean, 1,000 horsepower, just absolute
Yeah.
monsters. It's the scariest thing you'll ever experience in your life. But my section gets to the bottom of the mountain, and then it's a mountain
Mhm.
2-track shelf road all the way up the mountain. So once I start going, and if a trophy truck gets to me, I'm going. I can't get out of the way,
Yeah.
and I can't get
Yeah.
back down. I can't stop. You can't get around me. So literally 5 minutes into the ride, I stop at the base of the mountain. I look back. I'm like, where's my buddy? Like,
Yeah.
where is he at? Like, well, he's gone. Didn't see him again for the rest of the rest of the day.
Oh my
Turns out
god.
within 5 minutes of getting on his bike, he's just, trophy trucks are passing us through the sand, and he's just like, I'm out of my element. No way am I doing this. He cuts through the desert back to the highway, and then goes to, the meeting spot on the other side of the mountain. And so, long story
Oh my
short,
god.
I pre-run on my bike. I'm the most inexperienced noob ever. I mean, it all comes down to bike setup.
Mhm.
I have a rock hard moose on the back of my bike with a rock hard tire, And if you know anything about riding dirt bikes in hard rocks, that's the worst setup. You want to have like a soft, pliable tire
Mhm.
with a gummy compound with a soft mousse so you can grip onto the rocks. Well, I'm literally going up
Mhm.
this mountain shelf road with 8 gallons of fuel on my 400-pound. Well, you add the 8 gallons of fuel, you're looking at close to like 470 pounds. Um, just completely wrong setup. It's hot as can be. I'm trying to look cool, so instead of wearing my like breathable gear, I'm
Uh-huh.
wearing. I want to wear my cool gear. I'm just sweating bullets,
Oh
and
my god.
I mean, so I start up this mountain, and I'm struggling, and I'm thinking to myself, what did I get myself into? Like, I am not where I should be. This is not going to work out.
Yeah.
Dustin's gonna be like, thanks, but no thanks. We need somebody better. And so literally it was a fight almost for my life. It felt like a fight for my life. If you've ever been in those situations where
Mhm.
you're like heat exhaustion,
Mhm.
you're at altitude, so you're out of breath, and you're struggling to pick up this heavy bike. And I mean, I absolutely struggled. I eventually so I'll admit it here. I even posted this on my YouTube video
Mhm.
on my YouTube channel, and with the preface. Hey, this is embarrassing for me. I don't put
Mhm.
this out there, lightly. Like, this is just a show, the reality of like a noob coming down to Baja trying to pre-run. But
Mhm.
anyways, I had to get off my bike, and we're on this barren mountain in Mexico. There's no shade. There's a abandoned pickup truck with nothing. It's absolutely stripped. But the hood of the truck
Mhm.
is like angled up, and it's making a little bit of
Mhm.
shade next to the truck. And I literally sat next to that thing, like literally about to pass out. I pull out my freaking GPS, and I'm messaging the guys like, I don't think I'm gonna make it down, guys. Like, and
Oh my
to give you a
god.
little bit of perspective, 2 years prior to this, they had five, either 3 or 5 guys die in this section from heat exhaustion in the Baja 500.
Oh my
So
god.
yeah, yeah, and so I knew this going into it. I knew like this section's overheat. As soon as you start to drop down on the mountain, you're down into the other side of the peninsula, where it's
Mhm.
like that you drop down into a dry lake bed, and it's just insanely hot. And yeah, so I knew this going into it, like, hey, guys died here 2 years ago, so I'm like in the shade,
Mhm.
like, guys, I don't think I'm gonna make it down. Like, I might need rescuing. And I'm like so embarrassed. Like, and this guy comes by on his dirt bike. I end up I end up knowing this guy now. His name's Kevin Murphy. So he comes by on his dirt bike. He's got long
Mhm.
flowing hair. He's like, like older than me. He's like 45 years old. He takes off his helmet. He's like, you doing all right? It's the
Mhm.
nicest guy in the world. Gives me his last like liter of water from his camelback. Gives me some
Mhm.
electrolytes, and it's just like, you got it, man. Like, you can do it. And I'm like, all right. And so he takes off down. He keeps on going. And so I'm like, all right, I'm already up over the top. I'm already downhill from here, So I
Yeah.
get down, and I get down off the mountain. And then from there to the end of my section was about 40
Mhm.
miles. And it was 40 miles of like wide open, like 20 different options of lines you could take, deep sand.
Mhm.
And I was just in heaven. Like, I was like flowing. Like, if you give me this, I could ride this all day. But in that moment, and getting up over the mountain and in that challenge, they talk about Baja like it's an
Mhm.
entity, like they always talk about Baja like it'll throw everything at you. Like, Baja tests you. You have to earn Baja's respect.
Mhm.
And like, that's how I felt. Like, I was like, that was Baja's admission fee. Like, that was,
Mhm.
Baja saying, if you want to be down here doing this, you're gonna have to go through the crucible first. And so I got down, and I
Mhm.
was just in heaven on cloud 9, you know. And I get to the end of the track. I see the sun's coming down. This was supposed to take me 3 hours. It took me over 6 hours. Over 6
Yeah.
hours. And you know, I get over and I'm thinking Dustin's going to be like, "Thanks, man. You know, thanks for coming down. I hope you enjoyed it. I got to put somebody else in, you know." And I see him and he's got a big old smile on his face. And I come riding up and I'm all high-fiving him, you know, and he's like, "Good job, man." He's like, "There's a reason why I make people ride that section first, being their first time down here, because I need to see that, one, they can do it, and two, that you're going to have a good attitude about it. And you're not," because he goes, "The majority of the people that I throw through that section, they get right here to me and they're cussing me like, 'I can't believe you just had me do that. Like, that was effing, yeah, like, I don't want anything to do with that,' you know." And he's like, "The fact that you did it, you're smiling, you got a good attitude." He's like, "I know you're a good fit." So I was like, "Awesome, man." You know, and so it was reassuring, you know, because I felt like,
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't going to be up to the
Wait, you
task.
just almost died, so yeah.
No joke. One of the closest I've ever felt to being heat exhausted or heat stroke. And so,
That's
you know, just to,
crazy.
you know, so then going into the race, you know, I was second on the bike, and it was the race bike. And so it was properly set up. It was Dustin's bike.
Yeah.
And so that what was supposed to take me 3 hours, and it took me over 6 on that pre-run, on race day, I did it in about 2 hours and 50 minutes. And so, you know,
Nice.
it just proved that, you know, it all came down to bike setup. And I mean, going into it, I was like, I just need another chance, like, you know, wearing the proper gear, proper bike setup, not being so late in the day because it was so hot. You know, all these 3 factors. If I could just change one of them, you know, it would have been completely different. And that's what happened in the race. You know, we changed like 3 of the factors, and it proved in the results. And so, you know, handed the bike off, and then our bike ended up smoking a battery. When I handed it off to the guy, he ended up out in the middle of the desert, and we had to go on a 3-hour recovery mission in the roughest terrain I've ever been in
Oh,
a street legal vehicle out to him. And we get out there, and, you know, we're looking at the bike, it's just dead. And, you know, in my head, I'm like, battery. He's like, "Give it a try." He goes back, gets a battery, put it in there, bike fires right up. We're like, awesome, you know. So there's the third rider, his name's Paul Hart, Iron Man Paul Hart, badass from Northern California right now. He continued on, and, you know, he was in the mix of the trophy trucks at that time. And then he handed it over to our third rider, who took it into the finish. Unfortunately, the last rider, he missed the waypoint and went down a off limit road. And so we ended up getting a 20-minute penalty. And due to the battery and our 20-minute penalty, we went over time just barely. So we got a DNF on that race, which was unfortunate. But yeah. So then it went on to the Baja 400. And so, yeah, we went down there and raced the Baja 400 as well. And that one went much better. We ended up winning that race and got first. And we had some bike issues as well. Just, I mean, the thing is, some of the riders on the team are super fast. And Mexico is really, really rough. And a heavy bike like the Kove, like when that fast rider really rides the bike hard, he'll basically self-destruct the bike. And so it's a bit of like a bike management, you know, like you have to know how to manage your bike and still ride fast at the same time. And that was kind of why Dustin brought me onto the team, was just because, you know, I ride the Kove, and so I know how to ride the Kove, because there's a million guys out there who could hop on the bike and ride it. But it was just the fact that, you know, I knew the Kove. And so, yeah, so after, you know, I diagnosed the problem and I rode the hardest section in the Baja 500, Dustin was like, you know, "You've earned your keep, man. You've earned your keep. You're part of the team." And so We did good on the Baja 400, and that felt great for all those guys because we actually got the win. They gave me the
Yeah.
bottle, so I got I got the bottle. Dustin, got the trophy and the flag because obviously he's the team captain and whatnot. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was an amazing experience and just changed my world. Like literally changed my world. Now,
Mhm.
since he invited me to join the team, Baja has been on my mind. Like trying to figure out how to get back down there has been on my mind. And so come the Baja 1000, he was still
Mhm.
offering for me to be part of the team. But due to like the financial constraints and taking time off of
Mhm.
work and then taking time away from my family, there was just so many things like to tell my wife I had to, I'm going down to Baja for the third time this year. And I didn't never plan on going once. It was just too much. It was too much. And unfortunately, the section that I was going to ride was going to be pretty much all highway, and it was just like way too much investment for me
Yeah.
to do that. So I had to bow out and tell the guys that I wasn't going to be able to do it,
Mhm.
which was heartbreaking. And to be honest, it was like when I told them that I couldn't do it, I like felt like I broke up with my girlfriend. Like I was like I was so emotional. It was so hard. And yeah, so they went down and they ended up getting second place in the Baja 1000,
Mhm.
which made the team get first place in the Promoto Adventure class for the 2024 Score International series. So that's pretty cool. And there's an award
Yeah.
ceremony. There's an award ceremony coming up in January or at the 18th, I think, the same night as, or same weekend as Supercross.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, motocross and Supercross. I'm getting them mistaken. Um, but yeah, same weekend, and yeah, they're gonna get the championship and the 800X plate for next year. But unfortunately, I don't think he's running next year. He's actually
Mhm.
running Emma's. Emma's running the Kove. You saw that, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
I did see that. I thought that
yeah,
was so cool.
yeah. She's running. Dustin's going to be the captain for the team, and he's running an all-girls team on a Kove in
Yep.
I forget what that series is called. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's another desert
I
racing series.
could.
Yeah, but
Let's
that's
see if
super
I can look it
cool.
up because now we're gonna need to.
Yeah.
Now I need to know. Hold on. She just posted about it, so this is like brand new information.
Yeah, no
Um.
doubt. No doubt. So that's exciting. He's like I said, Dustin is Captain Davis and he's
Yeah.
gonna do great. He's gonna do great.
It just says in San Felipe.
Yeah, I think
So
that's the first race. The first race is down there in San Felipe, but it's a whole series that they're
yeah.
gonna be
So it
running.
doesn't say the series though on.
Um, Record. It might be record,
I
but
don't know.
yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, record
Mhm.
off-road series,
Yeah, there we
Ensenada.
go.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah,
yeah, she
very
just announced that,
exciting.
so I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So that's where the Kove took me this last year, and it
Mhm.
Dustin came into the picture and Baja came into the picture, and just everything, it keeps building, and I just
Mhm.
want to keep building from here. So I just revamped my my website, trying to promote my tours again out
Mhm.
here in Southern Arizona. So anybody coming out
Which I
to
have to
the
say,
Tucson area.
for answering my random Facebook post, um, I gave very little information about me as a writer. I felt like I was like taking a huge chance going out there, but I felt like you took me on something that was it was just a tiny bit out of my skill set, but it was still good. And it was still a good time. Like we had fun. I had fun. I don't know if you had fun.
Oh, I
Um
had fun.
but I had fun, and it was really cool. You were really great. You stopped, made sure that I made all the right turns and all of that. So I think that you're going to be really great with that. I think that's a really, really good
Thank
thing
you.
for you because you were just naturally good at it when we did it. So
Yeah,
that was
thank
my
you.
first ride in Tucson, and I was like, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. When we dropped in that first little bit after going
Yeah.
through the fence, I was like, oh, this is really rocky. I was like, oh, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop. Okay. All right, cool. Now I've got to, I was like, am I going to be able to do this? And it was like 100 thoughts in my head in like that first probably quarter mile where I was just like, oh shit. Like, oh, okay. And then you're like gone. So I was like, well, I'm definitely not going to try and keep up. So if I fall and get hurt, hopefully he turns around and comes back, which you
Yeah, I
totally
did.
did. It was super awesome.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I knew you were up for it when we met, and the first two things you said to me were what was it? It was I pick up my own bike and I like to follow. I was like, hi, I'm Todd. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, I was just like so in my head about it. I was like, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. So yeah, but it was really cool. And that has probably been one of my favorite rides even now that I've done. So it was really awesome. That was
Cool,
a fun
cool,
little
yeah.
area. So
Yeah, that is one of the gems of Tucson, but the riding is endless in Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois. That's where that's where I went to school. I don't know why I said Southern Illinois. Southern Arizona,
yeah.
there's so much riding, and it's just absolutely endless.
Yeah.
And right now, like when the rest of the country is just absolutely snowed in, and even in northern Arizona, it's too cold to ride a lot of the time. So southern
Yeah.
Arizona is where it's at all winter long, and the riding in any direction is awesome. So there's
Yeah.
terrain for everybody. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, so anybody want to come out, it's just dirtbyk.com, and it's dirt and then bike is byk.com, and you can check it out on YouTube as well if you just want to see some riding videos and what to expect out here in southern Arizona. I got a lot of videos on there, or if you're interested in seeing if the Kove is quality, got my racing content on there where we really put the Kove to the test and abused it. And the cool thing, just to kind of wrap it all up, the Kove is opening up so many doors and making this content on YouTube and just reaching out to people. Again, even these manufacturers are people. So all these aftermarket products and stuff, hey, check out my YouTube video. You want me to test out your new skid plate? How about you send it to me? I'll make some content and make some video for you. Sure, man. And so it's been awesome. It's been absolutely awesome. And I hope that continues.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I can continue to, make content. And that's kind of what, I haven't really known where the direction of my YouTube channel is going to go or where it was going to go. It's kind of been a lot of Kove and riding around Tucson recently. But yeah, I don't know. I want it to grow, and I want it to be organic, and I'm not looking to like fight for views. It's just like, hey, you want to, if you like to ride dirt bikes and you just want real stuff, then maybe think about subscribing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, I think it's always great when you're organic and you're genuine about what it is that you like. I always talk about it on here because people are always afraid to come onto the podcast. And I always tell them your passion's going to shine through, and that's what people are going to relate to. And every person that's been on here, they just get this big smile when they're talking about like how they started riding and everything. And that's kind of like why I wanted to do it. Like, it's so fun to hear people's stories and to like see them talk about it. People light up, and it's just the coolest thing to me.
Well,
But going back
I
real
give it
quick
up to
to
you. I give it
your
up to you for having this
oh, thank
platform
you.
to do that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. I did want to ask a couple quick questions. So
Yeah, for
in
sure.
regards to like when you're getting ready for Baja, um, a lot of the times, because we work with like I typically talk to a lot of hard enduro riders, so we're talking about that kind of racing. There's a lot of calorie expenditure during a hard enduro race. They're maybe not as big as the Bajas, but they're pretty big races. What does nutrition and fitness typically look like when you're getting ready for a race like Baja?
Yeah, no doubt. It's a lot of circuit training and endurance. So cycling
Mhm.
is huge. That's one way for me to get,
Mhm.
uh, I'm still on two wheels, I'm still out in the wind, and I'm keeping that heart rate up for an extended period of time. So
Yeah.
just those long rides. There's nothing that
Mhm.
replaces seat time when and gym strength is super important because what that does
Mhm.
is when you get in those oh shit situations and you have to like muscle the bike out of the situation, having those muscles to be able to do that are super important. Secondly, when you
Yeah.
crash, not if you're going to crash, when you're going to crash, you need to be strong and flexible so that you don't just tear crap or hurt yourself. So the gym strength is important,
Mhm.
but nothing replaces seat time, because you're going to use muscles in different ways on your bike than you could ever mimic in the gym with any kind of exercise. So mainly
Mhm.
it's just putting in a lot of hours on the bike. And then as
Yeah.
far as calories and expending calories while you're riding, no doubt, it it's super important having the energy gels, and other
Mhm.
snacks along the way. It is such a long race that you're getting off the bike in a pit, for a
Yeah.
minute or so, and just down a banana, or an electrolyte drink, that sort of thing along the way, and then gels, even like while you're
Yeah.
riding, on a sit down section, because in Baja there's some road sections where you might sit on the seat for 15-20 minutes and you have time to like pull something out of your pack because you have it ready and just down it. So it's super important. And you
Yeah.
talk to these guys, all the guys I raced with are all Ironman Baja racers, so they're all just absolute badasses. And going down there put it in a whole different perspective. Like I used to always tout, like say, oh, I have so much endurance, I can ride all these long hours and big miles on the bike. Totally different story when you get down there. These guys are on a whole nother level. Dustin's talking about training for I think 2026 or 2027 Baja 1000 that he's going to Ironman, and his training regimen is going to be walking the rim to rim to rim,
Yep.
nonstop.
Yeah.
Yeah, rim to rim to rim, nonstop.
I want to run that.
Good luck. I would let me know. I would love to follow along from a
It's
distance.
only like 50 some miles, right?
I'm not sure, but insane. I think he said it takes like 24 hours, like from rim to rim. So like it's like
Mhm.
48 to go back. It's just crazy. But yeah,
Yeah.
so fitness is utmost important when it comes to riding for sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
it's
I'm not in
huge.
shape. I'm it's a battle. It's a battle, and especially as you get older and you're sitting at a desk,
Mhm.
you're sitting in a car in a
Mhm.
desk for work all day long, and then you try to go out and ride. It's you really got to be disciplined, and that's where 2025 is going to be different. I need to get into shape. I went riding over the weekend, tried to hang with the Tucson
Mhm.
dirt riders, and again I almost like literally barely made it out of the situation. I was so naive thinking I could hang with those guys. Whew. But
Yeah.
yeah, so fitness 2025, it's gonna be different.
Yeah, no, I have huge, huge goals for 2025, and I've talked about it a little bit on here. So I'm riding my first hard enduro this year. So I've been
Awesome.
over the last couple months ramping up my fitness routine and everything. Um, and I'm just like, now it's time. Like I've got 4 months before my first one, and I'm like freaking out a little bit because I don't feel like I'm prepared. Um, but that ride that I did last weekend with the girls, they're all like hardcore riders. Emma was one of them.
Yeah.
They're really, really good. I struggled so hard. And a lot of it is because I have, we talked a little bit about mindset, but I am currently dealing with a little bit of PTSD after falling down the mountain that there will be dust. So,
Mm,
um, I I was on some of these, like, they're not huge hills, but I was on some of them and I'm leaning into the mountain because I'm afraid to fall the other way now. And
yeah.
so now I have to get over that mindset because I know in this first hard enduro that I'm planning on doing, there are some sections that it's like there's going to be a drop right there and you just have to deal with it. Like I have to get over that. And that's just going to be there's a lot of things that I need to work on, but that's one of the big things right now. So,
So go
um,
mental
is getting
strength.
okay with exposure again.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a lot. It's a lot. I have a lot of things to work on, my physical fitness, my mental fitness, all of it. But I think it's cool because I know a lot of people who are doing really big things in 2025 and who are kind of on the same journey. So it helps inspire me to know that other people are doing things that are similar.
Very cool. Very cool. I've watched some of your progress. A little bit of time that I've been friends with you on social media and whatnot, and you've made a lot of progress. So I give you props, and I know
Thank
you
you.
seem like a
Thank you.
very motivated person. So I think
Mhm.
you're gonna do good things and big things in 2025.
Thank you. I have huge goals. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason that I should have the goals that I have so quickly, but I I feel like I sat on the couch enough in my life and I'm just over that. I like
Good.
why not push? Like why not now? Like I'm about to be 35. Like it's now or never. So,
Yeah. Well, hey, you're doing it. You're doing it. Keep on doing it. I love it.
thank you. One of the questions that I always ask on this
Mhm.
podcast, and I'm really kind of excited to know your answer, is if you could go anywhere in the world, all expenses paid, where would you want to go ride?
Good
No one ever
question.
has an answer right away.
Yeah, I
It's
know. I
it's a
know.
big question.
If I could go anywhere and ride, and
Mhm.
hmm, there's so many factors. Like the desert is like some of the best riding. Like I don't like mud and I don't like cold. You know, jeez, oh, you know what? Like, if I could right now, so I just leave my house. If I had the time
Mhm,
off work and I just had the money and it didn't have the feeling bad leaving my family, I would
mhm,
just literally ride the whole peninsula of Baja. That's been a bucket list of mine, and I love the desert. I
mhm,
love the beach. I love warm weather. So Baja, I think would be comfortable. I love the vibe down in Baja.
mhm,
So yeah. I and that's the thing. I am like a going riding last week, and I rode somebody else's bike, and I'm such
mhm,
a creature of habit that I love setting up my own bike. I love my own equipment,
mhm,
that I would want to be able to leave from my house. And so,
mhm.
where could I go? I would probably ride down to Baja and ride all the way down to the tip. Yeah, so that'd probably be my ideal ride.
That's awesome. I like that. I think that's new. I don't think we've had anybody say that before. We've had
Okay.
a lot of Iceland, a lot of like going to Romania for Romaniacs,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
stuff like that. Some
yeah.
like Argentina. I want to go everywhere. So like I don't care. And that's part of the reason why my bike isn't lowered is because when I first got it, I wanted to learn how to ride it as is because I do want to travel. And I
Hmm.
know that if I go somewhere else, I'm going to get a full size bike. So they're
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
not gonna have a lowered bike for me, so I'm gonna have to figure it out. And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fine for, like, everyday riding, but now that I'm starting to do hard enduro, I decided to lower the bike, so that's happening hopefully in the next couple weeks.
Sweet, sweet. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's all the questions that I had for you.
yeah.
Did you have any shout outs or thank yous that you wanted to do? This is your time for it.
No, not necessarily. Thanks to AXP. I don't know that they would ever watch this, but AXP just sent me a skid plate to go test. So I got to give them
Mhm.
shout outs on any kind of social media that I'm going to be doing. Uncle Wang.
Yeah.
Uncle Wang makes products for Kove's, and Uncle Wang's been sending me products to test and make videos for and whatnot. So Uncle Wang, straight out of China, super rad dude, motorcycle enthusiast like anybody else. And yeah, awesome guys, And then just the 805X guys, I just have to give a huge shout out to Dustin for exposing me to this new world of Baja racing. It's a little
Mhm.
bit like a drug, like they all say, and I am all in. Like I am an addict,
Yeah.
and hopefully I can, you know, be able to take care of some of those cravings in 2025 and get back down there. I don't know how it's going to work out, but yeah, the whole 805X team, Paul Hart, Mark Betchel. Mark Betchel was our fast guy, and he lives up in Phoenix as well, and is an absolute legend. He is a legit dude, and absolutely love him. So just Dustin for introducing me to that whole world, because it's created, the Kove created a fire, Baja has created even more of a fire for dirt biking, and so I'm just excited for where 2025 is going to take us.
That's awesome. Oh, I'm so excited to see. Now that I know you and I can follow your social media, like that's gonna be cool to kind
Same,
of see what you
same.
get up to.
I can't wait to see the hard enduro stuff come. And I know it's just a matter of time before we ride together again. You're going to
Yes.
be right
Yep.
up there, and the Florence Superior area is amazing riding. So hopefully that can be a good like in between point. And then when it gets hot in the summer, I'm going to come up and see you up there and ride.
Heck yes. I'm so excited. By then I will know how to get around up there. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
will by
awesome.
then I'll be able to show you around maybe.
All
But
right, you
you might
scouted
still be
out.
better than.
You scouted
Yeah,
out. You
for
find the good
sure.
stuff, and then you show me around.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you again for joining. I really do appreciate your time. I know this is a little bit longer than I originally said, but it was really cool to hear your story. And I think that was really, I don't think there was anything that you could have shortened on it. Like I think
Okay.
that everything was really relevant. So that was really cool.
Thank you.
I learned a lot because I didn't know anything about rally racing before. I knew it existed, but
Yeah,
I learned a heck of a lot about it. So,
I'm new to it as well.
um,
I just want to do more.
yeah. Yeah, I know you will. I know you will. So, well, thank you again, and we will talk to you later.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'll see you on the next one.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.